Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Security by Default podcast. I'm the host of the show, Joe Carson. It's a pleasure to be here, and always my favorite time of my day, which is I get to talk to really cool, awesome, amazing people that actually really doing a lot of great things to make the world a safer place. And in the world we have, it's sometimes chaotic, sometimes fuzzy, and sometimes we need that knowledge and education to help us see through that cloud and chaos that's there. And I'm joined by an awesome person who I was introduced through No Starch, which is one of my favorite publishers. So No Starch Press do amazing books, and I was introduced to Harriet, who's the guest on the podcast today, to give us an update and insights into your latest book. So, Harry, before we get started, so to give the audience a bit of a background, who you are, what's your origin story? How did you get into the industry? And is it something that did you choose it? It's like, is this the path that you decided I'm going to go down this path, and this is the one I want to do, or did you kind of come in through another angle, another direction that some people do, which is quite interesting as well. So, if you can give the audience a bit of background and about yourself.
Thank you so much, Joe. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be chatting with you today. The origin story, where to begin? I'll try not to make it too long. I don't want to bore your listeners.
No, they're interested. They'd like to know how people get in, because sometimes people starting their journey as well, they might kind of decide, is this something for, possible for me to go down this path as well? So sometimes it's good for the people to hear, the kind of detailed version.
Yeah, well, I hope if anything, people feel inspired to go out and do their own thing based on my story, because I've spent the last 10 years at the intersection of artificial intelligence and security, but I didn't start out in cybersecurity at all. Originally, so my degree was in physics and anthropology, because I thought, they're two subjects that explain the world around us. You have physics explaining the physical world, anthropology explaining us strange primates that occupy it. Neither of them were that employable by themselves, but something I did become really familiar with from those two disciplines was data. So I ended up working in data science, originally at Deloitte, where mostly I was working on projects with the Australian Department of Defence. And that was a really challenging environment. Deloitte definitely does not let you slack at all. But being able to work on defence projects was so interesting. I spent a year working in Darwin in Australia, as you can probably.
Darwin.
I'm
Yes,
Australian.
yes. Is that where you're from, Darwin, or is it?
No, I'm from Canberra. Yeah.
Canberra,
Also,
okay.
not known for being that interesting. I love it. It's home. Yeah, Darwin, for people not familiar, is a very small town in the north of Australia, known for mostly British backpackers and crocodiles. And
including me. I spent a year in Australia. I did the Gibb River Road through three ways up to Darwin. Interesting. I have an interesting story from that time of my life.
I look forward to hearing that. I think I've ever been out anyway before on a Monday night and seen so many people in the pubs than Darwin.
Well, there was a reason why the backpacker. So one of the things that I used to do was we'd go to the pubs, and they'd have competitions, pub quizzes, football matches, and different things, and that's what we did in order to try and win free trips or get free food. So that's why the pubs were a place where we went in order to actually try to get. I got free trips to Kakadu from going to the pub.
Wow, there we go. Maybe I should have spent more time in the pub then.
But Darwin is an amazing place. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very cool. And obviously, it has a big Navy presence. So yeah, I did a year doing FIFO work there. So fly in, fly out work. And yeah, working on different boats, ships for the Australian Navy, looking at data remediation and data quality issues. I spent some time working with the Air Force. They were implementing chatbots back in 2017, which is perhaps very forward thinking of them, but maybe not always the right solution to a problem that an organization has. But it was a great opportunity to be able to, work on those kinds of challenges back then. And from data science, after a few years at Deloitte and on those projects, I wanted to change. So I guess I did the sort of the opposite, and I moved to the UK. And I planned on working in a pub in the UK. But on the way over there on my backpacking trip, I ended up having a LinkedIn recruiter reach out about a job. And so I was doing this interview process, and then something like the week I landed in London, I ended up getting a job offer for this job at a tech education startup in New York City. So I moved over there, and it was a great opportunity to learn a lot about what different companies around North America, the challenges they were having in the tech space. We went into all these Fortune 500 companies and basically taught them about data science and machine learning, artificial intelligence, even crypto. But we did workshops on cybersecurity, and that was my first real exposure to it. And I found it so fascinating. I thought it was such a cool area to get into because it not just focused on really interesting technical challenges, but there was a really fascinating geostrategic component, national security implications too. So while I was working over there in New York City, I started a master's in cybersecurity strategy and diplomacy at a university in Australia. So I was doing it remotely. And then when COVID happened, unfortunately, the US office of this startup closed down. I came back to Australia and continued the master's, and I ended up getting a job at the Australian Signals Directorate, which is Australia's equivalent of GCHQ in the UK or NSA in the USA. And I was fortunate enough to work on a few different teams there. I spent some time working in a team helping small businesses do better cybersecurity, basically. I worked with a team that was about applying data science skills to understand tech SIGINT, which is signals emitted from military platforms. And then my final team, my role was as acting technical director of the AI hub within ASD. And the remit of the AI hub was basically to help inform the artificial intelligence strategy and direction of Australia's national security and intelligence community. And there was a lot of work learning from and contributing to our Five Eyes partners as well. That was incredible. It was really incredible to sort of peel back that curtain as well, that the national security engine. And after doing my master's, I moved on to doing a PhD. So I was doing my PhD in parallel to this work.
In the same topic or in something slightly adjacent?
Yeah, I originally the topic was something like translating tech SIGINT for military customers, something like that. It was based on the team that I was in when I started it. And then during the literature review process, I found this field called adversarial machine learning, which is all about hacking and disrupting machine learning models. And I think I read my first paper on that topic and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is so cool. Because it combined the two things I found most interesting, like my data science skills and the cybersecurity challenges. And so I'd been working on this PhD in parallel to that job, and national security organizations at that time were taking AI security pretty seriously, but it wasn't something I ever heard talked about outside of those institutions, except for my PhD. But they looked at a very different kind of niche scientific challenge, disrupting machine learning models. It wasn't really seen as something that could ever be a real threat. But yeah, the national security community was definitely really keen to the challenge that it might pose in the future. I saw that there was this big challenge though, that the kinds of organizations that had access to this information, was the national security organizations, maybe really big tech companies that had research labs in adversarial machine learning like Microsoft. But most of the organizations that would be using machine learning models and AI systems had no idea about it. And they were the ones most likely to be impacted if threat actors were trying to compromise their AI systems in some way. So I very naively had the idea that maybe I should start a company to solve that problem. And so I started Maleva Security Labs in 2023 with the mission of helping other organizations take AI security seriously too, which was a terrible premise to start a company. Really naive. No market, no one had heard of it. And I really just spent the first couple of years traveling around to different conferences, talking about AI security.
Which type of conferences were, because I've seen more of the security conferences doing more AI now, but probably 2-3 years ago, it was probably more AI specific conferences. So which type of conferences was it security conferences focused, or was it AI, or the combined?
They were usually security conferences. B-Sides is my all-time favorite brands conference. I know your listeners will be related.
I literally just came from B-Sides Radio this morning, so I've been on a bus for 4 hours. from B-Sides Riga. So it's also one of my favorite because it's focused on community. It's
Yeah.
it's the community aspect of things rather than the vendors and the tech, which is
Mhm.
great. So no, the more kind of original knowledge sharing aspect. So, but yeah, B-Sides is awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely back in 2023, I was usually the only AI speaker at the
Hmm.
B-Sides conferences I went to, noting, of course, that Australia is a specific kind of market. I'm sure that internationally there were probably lots of other AI speakers too. Yeah, I mean, massive props to B-Sides. I remember speaking at my first B-Sides in 2022 in Sydney, and like, I think it was the first time I met people who took what I was saying seriously. And it just felt so inspiring and I felt
Hmm.
confident and I was like, yeah, I'm going to start this company. So yeah, I can credit B-Sides to that inspiration, I think.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it was mostly B-Sides
Hmm.
conferences. I spoke at DEF CON in 2024
Hmm.
and that was a really like incredible opportunity.
Hmm.
Definitely the scariest thing I've ever done. Like I don't think I mean, and I do a lot of public speaking, but I've never been so nervous to do a talk, because it's just such a big oh, yeah, I mean
Biggest, it's the biggest cybersecurity hacker conference in the world. So it's
yeah.
to go to that size and scale is fantastic. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's big, but, like, all the previous speakers, they're just so incredible,
mm,
and, yeah, being part of the lineup was just so scary and intimidating, but it was amazing because, again, that was a crowd of people that took
mhm,
AI security seriously, and within a couple of months of that talk, I think I remember I was on a plane at some point, and I was thinking about how I could, I don't know, talk to more people about AI security, how I could get the
mhm.
message out faster, and I was like, "No, I've always wanted to write a book. Maybe I should just write a book." I don't know how that happens, but, maybe I'll write
Mhm,
an outline and just, I'll start
mhm.
shopping it around, I'll start pitching it. And a week later, I got an email from No Starch Press.
from
And
from Bill himself.
well, no, and I hadn't sent anything out, but it just like the opportunity came in. One
Mhm,
of the amazing editors, I think, had seen the DEF CON
mhm,
talk and seen my YouTube channel and other things like that, and it just felt like, yeah, really, really good timing. If I was
mhm.
someone who believed in manifestation, I would probably say it's manifestation. Like, I don't know, however you define manifestation is definitely, the right time and put the work
Mhm.
in, it kind of happened.
Sometimes it takes all of those different aspects to just happen at the right times. Speaking of DEF CON, in the right fields, or somebody's there who heard to talk and thought this would be a great way to to turn into a publication that would be valuable for everyone.
Mhm.
So when did the book writing start? And so you started with the outline, and then you got discussed with no starts. So were you thinking about doing an AI security book, or was it kind of did it change over time, or was it what you originally had planned to do at the beginning?
It actually didn't change over time, at all. Obviously, the technology changed in certain
Mm,
ways. Agentic AI certainly became more of a topic of conversation over that period of time. But
mhm,
yeah, when I started writing it in December 2024, and I finished it in September of last year, so
mhm.
September 2025, which is quite a short period of time to write a book, really. It was a lot of work. I really didn't anticipate how much
Mhm.
work it would be, which sounds like a really stupid thing to say, but,
So
um
it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, especially when you get to point where if you have a good copywriter that makes your life a lot easier.
yeah.
And if you end up getting a good, visual designer, I don't know who did the graphics for the book, for the cover, but if you get somebody who's really good at visualization, they also help a lot. So, sometimes, it's getting people who's done it before and helping them navigate where you can just focus on the content, makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah. No, the No Starch team was
Mm,
fantastic. I mean, everyone that I worked with, but especially Francis So, my editor, who
mm,
I worked with the most.
mhm,
And yeah, for about 9 months there, we'd probably email every day or every second day. I'd have, yeah, different versions of chapters. She'd come back with
mhm,
feedback. And yeah, it was a lovely period of time. It was a
mhm,
lot of work, but yeah, felt very exciting. But by the time it went in, like the full manuscript went in, I know it felt like it's done. Like it's kind of crazy that now the book is launching and it's starting to come out. I feel like
mhm.
mentally, it's all been a long time ago.
Yeah, it's even the post once you've done the the kind of initial drafts and the kind of, the final manuscripts and everything's come together. The process of just going through that post-production side of things, getting it all ready, and sometimes translation, sometimes just getting the prints and the formats that right takes a lot of time. So I've myself had one of the early reviews, and I got to probably about close to 40-50% of the way through, and it's very insightful for me. One of the things, because I always find my background is purely cybersecurity, like security. Well, originally that was not a thing. Even when I started, it was just IT, and security was just part of your job. And a lot of times we have had automation helping us when we've been looking at data, using data to input. And I actually laughed because somebody asked me, "It's like, can you remember and recall when's the first time you really did anything that was like resembled AI?" And I laughed when I used to work in HP in Concord West in Sydney. And when I remembered, is like years ago, we had a server that kept failing. It was a billing system. And the only way to get that system up and running was to go send somebody into the data center, into the cage, push the button, and get it started again. And what I crafted was another server at the opposite side of it, where I attached like a pencil to the CD tray. So what I could do, because what we used to do when you went to the data center cage, in order to find out which server you're meant to work on, you'd eject the CD tray. So you went in and you looked around, which server's got the CD tray ejected, and you're like, oh, that's the one. And I laughed one day when I went in to fix the server. I was like, oh, there's the other, like the CDs. So I got it. So I placed it opposite. So every time I needed to reboot the server, I ejected the CD tray, and it would push the button to close the CD tray, and it would reboot the server. And then I started learning the data, because the point is that when you start gathering and logging and creating analytical information from it, you can start becoming predictive. You start making assumptions about, probably this is maybe a right time when we should probably restart the server. And I actually got at the point, because I would get a pager, back then it was all pagers, and you get a pager saying, oh, the server's not working. And then I would actually, go and run the script to eject the CD tray, push the button, put it back in, restart it, and everyone's happy. And then I got to the point where actually the servers started talking to each other, and the CD tray, when the server started realizing the other server wasn't responding, it automatically ejected the CD tray. And I got to the point where I could really start understanding the trends and knowing roughly when it was going to crash. And that always makes me laugh. I've actually started creating a talk on that exact topic, is AI, and in the old days, like retro AI.
I would love that talk.
It's quite. I'm in the process. I just found two machines where finding CD trays these days is not easy. So I've got two machines where I'm actually going to recreate it again and record it on video. But that was for me, is like, but what I found was that we kind of almost went down two separate paths. Security went down its path, and AI is kind of taking its own trajectory. And a lot of it was many early systems back in the 60s for training models, the ELIZA, the psychologist model and stuff, and the therapist side. And then it moved into a lot of probably the last maybe 15 years before has been around visualization, image detection, especially cameras and CCTVs in order to be able to detect things and understand what they are. But I think in the last probably 7 years now, with the improvements, where I think for me probably the biggest change was the natural language processing and understanding, the ability for us to communicate in a very different way that starts to understand. What was for you the thing that probably what was the change that you saw make the biggest impact over the last years of AI has been evolving?
That's a really good question. I love the story you told, because I think one of the challenges when people talk about AI is that they don't really know what they mean when they use the term, or at least lots of different people use the term in slightly different.
It's a very broad umbrella. When we say AI, it covers lots of things.
Yeah, it's a massive field of technologies, and like I think there's a technical definition that ISO gives, and other organizations too. But in essence, they're all kind of along the lines of a machine that can do human-like things. And so your example is such a prescient way of explaining that, because, since the term was coined in like the 1950s, it hasn't really referred to any specific technology. It's just referred to whatever technology is considered the cutting edge. So in terms of what I think the biggest change I've seen, I don't know, like I think a lot of the point of the book is really that there are a few things that are fundamentally different about the way that machine learning models work, that whatever kind of system they're in, like the system is comprised of a machine learning model or many, and then lots of other things that have been in computer systems for ages. But the way that the integration of that machine learning component changes the system is really fundamental. And you can add things onto the system, you can add tools and stuff, but it doesn't change the fact that machine learning models are probabilistic. They're so reliant on that data, and they can like
Yep. They can get better or worse and get better and worse again. So depending on that learning model and the deep learning and the machine learning and the modification of the weights, from basically if they skew off from, data poisoning or other types of manipulation, then you can get a lot of bad results. And this is one of the things is, as I was going through, I really enjoyed from my side as being a security practitioner, I think I really enjoyed, the really first chapter was around, the actually maths behind it.
yeah.
And that was for me is like, okay, I knew parts of it, but it really brought it all to kind of, to clarity for me. It made much more clear for me as I went through. It's like, oh, so that's how it's working. Because I kind of had some ideas and some pieces, building my own agents and working on, but the maths and probability and the history behind that's what kind of brought it, kind of closed that piece of knowledge that I didn't have, which was great. And then moving into examples. Right now I'm in the section of the AI adversary part, exploiting it and the risks. One of the things that, as I was going through, I love all of the references and associations back to some of the older models of the past. It was a highlight was as I was thinking about that was the part with the how do you patch AI was
Mm.
was really kind of, and I started because a lot of my history is in patch management, and you'll have a system has a vulnerability and you patch it and that's it. And wasn't really anything you needed. Sometimes you might need to go and fix the data because maybe the data got corrupted or some way, or maybe it wasn't compatible with the new patch and you had to make some slight modifications to it. But as I was going through, and one of the things you highlight was about patching AI, especially when it's all about the data, because the data is the fuel. The algorithm, the learning model, and everything that's there, the LLM. But how would you patch AI if you find out that the data itself had got a bit of a it's like a teenager that's just got a bit of a bad habit, and how do you change the behavior back to the behavior that you expect?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's a real challenging question because something I've noticed a lot of AI security professionals will refer to instead of a traditional vulnerability associated with deterministic code that you can patch. Like in AI systems and machine learning models, it's more of a weakness. It's something that's inherent in the nature of how those machine learning models optimize, but at times isn't always a bad thing. Like the probabilistic nature is a lot of the time a good thing. It's why you get good pros and why you have some variety there. But yeah, I think something I'm conscious of during the book and in my practitioner life too is like depending on the kind of use cases and how it's implemented in an organization, that dramatically changes the technical answers that you have for a question. So, most of the kinds of organizations I work with, the big enterprises who they don't really build their own models most of the time. They're using Microsoft products or AWS, and they have almost no control over those machine learning components in the AI systems. But they do have control over contractual arrangements, and they can contribute to discussions around governance and standards. That's a very different kind of question where the solution is more process and systematic than if you're a machine learning developer who has the slightly easier job, I guess, of deciding whether maybe they can like retrain a model from scratch. Maybe they can fine tune it again. But yeah, it's definitely not as simple as a code solution. It's essentially changing the fundamental property of what that model understands about the world. And thinking about how to solve those problems is in many ways similar and borrowing from the existing doctrine in cybersecurity, but it's important to understand that there are pretty fundamental differences too. Otherwise, those kinds of challenges just get ignored.
Yeah, my concern as I was thinking about that, that part of the book and then that aspect, and my mind started racing because I started thinking about, and some of the things I'm seeing also in media at the moment with a couple of peers of mine who's using it to do coding, and I started thinking, for the first couple of years, it's been a lot of experts and professionals in the field who've been using the models, and their data has been contributing to training the models. So if you get a lot of people who knows what they're doing and interacting with the models, and it's their interactions which are being used to train it now, I got it to where it's getting better and better and better and better. And then if you open it up to the wider public, you get a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, start using the model, and the model gets trained on the mass of people who have no idea. They're just used to using Google searches, and they're using for the same thing and not understanding. And now that model's learning from people who are, let's say, less experts or junior in the field. How does that impact the model going forward? If I've all of a sudden, for the last 2 years, I've got expert coders who's been using it, to improve their code, and now you flood it with lots of junior coders. Is it going to learn from the junior coders that that's the right way to do things, and all of a sudden, reverse back? Because I've seen some comments around, with Claude recently, where the quality it started introducing vulnerabilities in the recent months, and if you're not really understanding about quality and understanding about what it's creating and not checking it, you're just assuming that it's right. Then it can create a lot of risks as well. Is that something also that potentially is as who's been used the data it's been trained on? Do we quantify it? Do we check it for quality, or do we just assume that it's good?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because one of the, it's both a technical and a systematic challenge is how opaque the models are when it comes to how they actually understand the world around them. I mean, so the base models that we're using, like your Claude and your GPT family of models, they were trained based on basically the entire internet.
Yes.
And unfortunately, as we now know, a lot of models are also trained on copyright material, but sort of everything that is available to humans are trained on. And being able to ensure that that is good quality data
Yep.
is impossible. And so they've obviously picked up lots of weaknesses in how they write code, for instance, and biases that they
Yes.
then propagate into language as well. But then the extent to which us interacting with those models, and to what extent that retraining process actually fundamentally changes the representation underneath those models, I suspect is quite minimal, actually. But we also don't really know. We don't know because there's no mandate for AI labs to release any of that information beyond the kind of academic information they choose to release. And there's also still a lot of questions among the researchers about how it actually, how they hold information. We understand, a fair amount about how models work, and we can interrogate them in some way and kind of try and understand their reasoning. But a lot of those approaches are still quite nascent, and they're not very reliable. So actually understanding, if you have a model that is, billions of parameters big, where is this certain idea located? Or how
Exactly.
does this certain input lead to that kind of output? A lot of those are still unknowns.
Yeah,
So
and
that
the
can,
efficiency and costs can also kind of have massive impacts.
yeah.
So going back to the book, when you were doing the book, one of the things I found is that in cybersecurity we need AI, and AI needs security. It's like it's a double-edged sword. It can be good for bad. Both directions, but we definitely need it to stay ahead. We need it to move fast, because ultimately it's an accelerant, and data is the fuel to AI to make it move fast with accuracy and efficiency. When you were doing the book, I find that we need to bring both AI developers and architects with security together, because we need to do with security in mind by design. So when you did the book, did you really target it for the AI side of the world, who's looking at creating AI and doing it securely, or did you have it for cybersecurity to better understand AI more? What was the target audience that you were thinking about when you're writing it?
Yeah, the target audience is very much someone who is either a cyber security practitioner already, or adjacent in some related field, or is interested in cybersecurity like a student, and really helping them go from 0 to 60 in the intersection with artificial intelligence. It's challenging because I also in my network work with a lot of AI people who want to understand the security side better, but those fields are really quite separate, and trying to bridge them both is quite hard. There's a lot of assumed knowledge that really isn't common between the two fields. Even the term AI security when writing the book is quite challenging. We really workshopped the title quite a bit, because among different groups of people, AI security as a term means very different things.
Yeah.
Most of the time when I'm speaking with cyber people, AI security means using AI for security, either offensively or defensively. And there is one chapter about that in the book, but that's not the focus. And then among AI safety researchers in my network, and they tend to come from more of an effective altruism leaning, for them, AI security is securing the AI models in frontier labs and making sure that they have good, normal cybersecurity, so that threat actors don't steal their AI models. That's a totally different kind of problem. Although increasingly there's of course overlap as, AI systems are doing things to other AI systems. But the way that AI security is framed within the book and sort of my field and paradigm is very much securing AI systems from external threats. They could be AI systems, but also humans, just anything in the external environment that's seeking to manipulate an AI system in some way. So in writing the book, I was really cautious, like keen to make sure that, as you say in that first chapter, going through the math of
Yeah.
machine learning, to me that's really important because you don't need to love math. You don't need to do any more math than that.
Well, even though it did take me a little, I was like, okay, I need to go back to my my childhood to try and remember some of the mathematical algorithm. I was getting there eventually, but it did take me a moment of reading it over again. I was like, okay, what's that symbol mean again?
Yeah,
But I got
yeah.
there in the end.
I certainly don't want to bring back math trauma for people. I mean, we've all been there, but the math of optimization
Mhm,
is so fundamental to machine learning because that is the core reason why people are either scared that
mhm,
AI systems are going to become super capable and try and take over the world, or even that errors in AI systems
mhm,
propagate unnecessarily. It's all because of the way that they've been trained to relentlessly optimize on some kind of objective or
mhm,
the objective, and to what extent that can actually work in a real environment. Most of the time it's okay, but it's certainly not a safe or robust solution for
mhm.
training large scale AI.
And I have seen that transition. I did see,
Mm,
the early years, a lot of security companies looking to use AI to accelerate their own capabilities and use cases and features. But in the past year, it's completely switched to realizing that actually it's not AI for security. It's security helping reduce the risk of AI systems, and because they're going to be used on a much broader scale in accounting and in production, in food and medicine. And therefore, it's important for security to realize that it's not just something they can use, but it's something that they actually can reduce the risk and make safer as well.
well,
But no problem. I do have some questions for you. Is like, how has your movie algorithm improved, and also your wine algorithm? Have you got those both prediction models down
Yeah, yeah.
to choosing the best wine and the best movies?
Yeah, for your listeners, I have a couple of examples in the book based on my real life hot takes on how, like, no movie should be longer than 90 minutes, basically. You know, I don't know if they've improved over time,
So,
but yeah, it's yeah,
yeah, so that's definitely, as part of the book for the audience. There's a lot of, I think it was like 30 different scripts or projects that they can leverage in order to understand and better test and change the parameters, and to learn, how the output and impacts of each of those. And I think they're all Python scripts, if I remember.
yep,
So
correct.
yeah, and to start off as fruitcake was a cake in the beginning as well, and then it was the movies, and then it moved to wine. I
Yeah,
don't know if is that in the order that you started, but it reminded me back when I was, one of the reasons I started programming was to try and predict the football league tables. That's why
mhm.
I was 8 years old writing basic code to do predictions of football, and that's what we all try to do. We want good prediction models. We want to know, you know, what's the future. What's the right, where's things going.
Yeah. And I mean, it helps to have an intuitive model. Like you can kind of
Mhm,
have an intuition about how some sort of classification or prediction might turn out.
mhm.
But really, they're in there so that if someone meets me in the real world, they know not to make me watch a certain movie or to give me, for instance.
Because we want to optimize. I mean, at the end, the most valuable thing we have in the world is time, and the more
Mhm.
we can use these models to optimize our time wisely as possible, then that's the great thing that comes out of them. So it is. So for yourself, the book's been released and it's available. Where can people get the book? Where's the where's the availability for them? Is it directly from those starts, or is it like available in bookstores, or what's
Yeah.
the
So
easiest way?
as of the 9th of June, it's now available from all book retailers that stock it. No Starch Press website. You can go there directly and get a PDF version
Mhm.
or the hard copy version. But yeah, it's also now available on Amazon and other like Barnes and
Fantastic.
Noble, those kinds of
I'm
sites
gonna
too.
I'm gonna add all the links into the show notes, so it makes it probably easier for everyone to find it as well. So one of the things, I mean, it's such a fast moving industry, and sometimes just staying up to date. I've talked to a lot of startups, or AI startups, and they're looking about, every 6 months they don't know where they're going to be. So as the industry is moving really fast, how do you stay up to date? How do you stay knowledgeable. What's your method of staying educated and informed in the advancements?
Yeah, great question. I'm still so time poor that it can be really hard, but I think a couple of things I think are really important, especially in a field that moves as fast as AI security, is firstly to have a really good breadth of understanding. So going to
Hmm.
diverse sources I find really useful, especially in a field like AI security where it means so many different things and there's different paradigms according to different people. And for some people, it's just red teaming, but really it should be more holistic than that. I
Hmm.
think it's really important to cover, all the AI safety topics through to cybersecurity
Hmm.
papers as well. So, for example, I subscribe to a few email newsletters like um, Jack Clark for AI is really good.
Hmm.
There's a
Okay.
podcast I listen to, the Daily AI Breakdown, which is really helpful. Embrace the Red is a really good blog site, but there's so many out there, and I think people,
Hmm.
if you search broadly and widely, that's a really good way to start. I also
Hmm.
am lucky that AI security is my day job. Like, I'm always, for example, doing projects where I'm helping build
Hmm.
AI security frameworks for companies, where I'm always learning something new about that industry or about
Hmm.
that system, but also I run courses and stuff. So interacting with people in the courses is incredible, for learning what their real problems
Hmm.
are and what's happening on the ground in different industries. So, more broadly speaking, for your listeners who don't get to work in AI security day to day, I still think that actually having those real human conversations with
Hmm.
people, whether that's at a B-sides conference, the AI security forum is incredible. If
Hmm.
you want to go, they have one every year in Vegas around Hacker Summer Camp. They have others around the world as well, but that's definitely the best, in my opinion, AI security conference. But yeah, being able to connect with other people at that AI security intersection and hearing their thoughts, I think is a really valuable way of staying up to date.
Fantastic. And for the training courses, I guess they can get it from the Maliva website. That's
Yeah.
where they can go and find more
Yeah,
information about the training
AI
course.
security fundamentals, it's what it's
Mm.
called. And it's a similar sort of trajectory for the book, but goes a bit deeper
Mhm.
and some, I guess, updates based on, I guess ways of teaching that work better for a course
Mhm.
than for. But yeah, we get to work with people from. Yeah, no, when I first released the course, I thought if one person's interested in this, I'll. And then we ended up having people sign up from, like, Microsoft, Palo Alto
Mhm.
Networks, Google, like, we're training them, which is
Yeah.
wild. So, yeah, it's a great community of people, but yeah, all the like, the AI security niche is still so small that it's such
Mhm.
a great opportunity to get involved, and even if you don't come from AI or security, that we need so much help that I
Yeah.
really hope that even if people aren't technical, even if they don't wanna read this book, even if they don't wanna code, like, they still feel like their contribution is
Mhm.
worthwhile in this field because there are so many technical challenges we still have, but so many, like, geostrategic
Well,
challenges that we need help solving to make sure that AI security doesn't become the threat that it needs to.
yeah, absolutely. We need to make sure that we think of it. One of the comments I said when I was part of the subject matter expert group for the EU AI Act,
Mhm,
and going back to, and that was back in 2018 when we were actually working on that as a subject matter. We were giving different uh, problems that we had to, that was AI was being used in order to solve those problems. And one of the things that I said, we need to embrace it, but we
mhm,
need to do it with responsibility, that we own it,
mhm,
and therefore that means any of the things that we want to make it, the goal is to make it our lives better with it. So it's not about AI replacing people, it's about AI empowering people. And how
mhm,
do we make sure that, every time we think of a use case, is it how are we making people's lives better by taking dangerous work away from people, whether it be doing, analyzing, mineral kind of, mines and, dangerous places and forest fires and stuff, all of those things where we can actually take humans away from the danger
mhm,
and let
mhm,
AI deal with it. And that was kind of one of the aspects. And so absolutely, I think, we always have to make sure that from an ethical side of things. And that's why I always said that, when I heard about the book, I was like, oh, this is great. Cause we've always looked, how can we use it? But at the same time, we also need to protect it.
mm.
And that's a fundamental kind of, I guess, responsibility that we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and there are gonna be some big conversations that society as a whole needs to have to make sure that AI can the incentive structures in place help
Yeah.
that happen to.
Yeah, one of the concerns I have is that we're trying to make it very human-like, which I think is probably not the best thing to do, is because then we misunderstand that when we're interacting with AI, is that we can misinterpret as being a human,
Mm, mm,
as having intelligence, and I think we have to make sure that that and then people get psychology problems and stuff with interacting. The more human-like we make it, because
mhm.
that just makes us more comfortable when we're using technology. We'll make it human-like, and then again, that we should also make sure that people are aware that what
Mm,
is human and what is not. So,
absolutely.
and it can be misinterpreted that way as well.
Yeah.
So, if anyone has questions afterwards, they want to contact you. What's the best way to reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you? Is it through LinkedIn or to your website or otherwise?
Yeah, people can absolutely reach out on LinkedIn at Harriet
Mhm.
Farlow. I also include my email address in the book, which was maybe a really dangerous thing to do, but it's harriet@harriethacks.com. But if you look up Harriet Farlow, you'll be able to find various ways of contacting me.
Well, emails are meant to be public. The question is that do you filter them enough? And you might have to have an agentic AI agent that just filters the incoming messages into things that you need to read and things that is maybe something of interest. So
Yeah,
it's a challenge we all have. When emails getting flooded with a lot of messages. So,
so
but it's
many
been
emails. Yeah, I definitely want people to reach out and feel like, yeah.
fantastic. I'll also make sure that those links and everything's in the show notes as well, so it's easy for people to find. So, Harriet, it's been fantastic speaking to you. I'm really excited. I'm excited to continue. My goal is to go through this weekend and spend more time reading the book, but I also want to get to the point where in the next couple of weeks I'm going to get more to the practical side as well. You're playing around with the scripts as well, because I want to play around with the scripts, the Python scripts, and I want to optimize the wine list as well with my own inputs. That's one of my fun things I'm going to play around with, and then also get it into my own agent code as well to see how it works with that. So it's been fantastic having you on. Really enjoyed and looking forward to the future work. And thanks for creating the book. It's definitely something we all need because for me, it's closed the gap and where I didn't have knowledge in certain areas, and it's made it possible for me to better understand it. So thank you for everything you do.
No, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, everyone, this is the Security by Default podcast. I'm the host, Joe Carson, and it's been awesome having Harriet on talking about the Practical AI Security book. And we'll make sure that you've got the links in the show notes to go and get your own copy so you can actually get to understand better about how you can make AI security and make the world a safer place. So, for everyone, tune in every 2 weeks. Take care, stay safe. Until next time, thank you.